Hey guys, welcome back to Worth the Wait for another episode. This time I wanted to expand and give one more example of how to God we are worth the wait. We're worth the effort that it takes for Him and for however long it takes for us to finally figure things out and to grow into the people that He wants us to be. So let's get into it. There are a lot of people out there that had experience with very well-intentioned parents, ones who loved them to bits, and one of the results and ways that they showed that love was by being more controlling than they had anticipated they were being, and in an effort to try and save their child from having to go through something painful. Once again, it's well-intentioned, and being a parent, I'm not one, but looking from the outside in, I can see it's so hard. Like, knowing when you're making a good judgment call is just really tricky. So this is me not at all trying to give any shame whatsoever to parents. Parents, you are awesome and you're sacrificing for your kids and no one's going to shame you for that. There's just one effect that I've noticed that a lot of kids who end up being more frequently more rebellious is because they had more controlling parents that were restricting the amount of choices they could have as a kid. And that's a delicate balance. As you grow, you need to have less and less restriction, and knowing how much restriction to lift is tricky. My mom, I think, is a fantastic example of somebody who would sit down and reason with me. So in my church growing up, we have different levels of activity. When you were a young kid underneath 12 years old, you'd be a part of primary on Sundays. So you'd sing songs, you'd learn lessons according to your age level, and there were specific teachers for that. And then outside of church and outside of Sunday school, you'd have a weekly activity. For the boys, it was Boy Scouts. For the girls, it was called Activity Days. And we'd end up doing a lot of things that were like crafts or learning specific skills or playing games or maybe even playing some sports. And it was great. At about age 11, I was starting to get really tired of having to be one of the older kids in the group. There's a lot of maturity differences between a young girl who can come at 8 years old and then one who's at 11. I know 3 years as an adult is not that big of a deal, but as a kid, it's a big deal. And I was getting really tired of having to be the older kid that would pander and cater to the 8-year-olds and the younger kids. And I started to tell my mom, like, Mom, I don't want to go anymore to activity days. It was usually on a Wednesday. I wanted to just stay home and watch TV. And my mom sat down with me. She heard my complaints and she sat down with me and she said, what are some of the reasons that we go to these activities? And I think I begrudgingly said, because we're like there to help other people, in a very sarcastic, sassy tone. And she said, yes, that's true. That is true. That's a big part of why we go to these activities. It's not really as much for you as it is for you being there for other people. So let me make you a deal. Because at this point I was like, I'm going to quit going. I don't want to go anymore. And she said, how about you give it a chance? Give it a few more weeks of going. Now that we've talked about how it's an opportunity to serve the people around you. And if you really don't want to go, you don't have to. Which I was 11 and this was a church function. And she could have very easily said, as long as you're under this roof, you're not old enough to make this decision yet. But she didn't. Instead, she sat down and she talked with me and then she gave me a choice with a condition. So I fulfilled the requirements. A few weeks later, I went for a few weeks and then I stopped going altogether on my own. And I felt so free and I really loved it. And I think it was about 2 months of not having to go to activity days before I decided, okay, I think I want to go back and I want to go of my own volition. And I can't really remember all of my thought process. That was, so many years ago. But I just know that I knew that it was my choice. And because I had that experience so young of knowing that I could come and participate in a church community and it's my choice, and I have a mom who will not force me to, has always stuck with me. I've always known then that church participation was my choice. And that's been incredibly helpful because as everyone knows who goes to church, it is not all sunshine and roses. We all believe in Jesus, but that does not mean we are all Christ-like. And there are plenty of times we have ample opportunity to have a really rotten time and feel like an outcast or like we don't really belong or have some friction between people and just have a reason to not go. And because I was shown that I would be respected that it would be my choice, and she still guided me too, that like I could trust her, then I haven't had the same experience of needing to rebel as much. Part of the reason why I was thinking about this is I came across in Isaiah chapter 1, that classic verse where the Lord is inviting Israel and saying, "Come now and let us reason together." And that is precisely what I feel like my mom did for me in that moment. She said, "Come now and let us reason together." And I knew I was met with respect and with guidance. That, I think, is exactly how God does it. My mom was mirroring the way that God does it. He comes to our level, which is outrageous considering the fact that he can create worlds and we barely can even change our hair color. But he'll come to our level and he will say, "Let's reason this through." And I think sometimes he gets accused of being controlling because he's got commandments that we have to follow, or that blessings won't come unless you're being righteous. And taken out of context, then those seem like kind of a despotic ruler. But it's because it's out of context. In context, he is absolutely approachable. He's the kind of person that when he gives a command, it's not because he wants to be obeyed. Like that's the satisfaction he gets from it. The satisfaction he gets from it is that we get to experience joy. Anytime that there's a commandment, it is for our enrichment. And that's where his joy comes from, is seeing his children grow. So he's absolutely willing, for as long as it takes, for as many times as it takes, to come and reason together with us, to sit at the same table across from each other and to say, "Hey, what's on your mind? How are you feeling about this? What do you think you're going to do? Might I suggest that you try this? How about we give a condition to that? How about if you want to be obedient, this is what I'm asking you to do?" And I love that he is the kind of person who will reason, and he will reason again and again and again. And it's not just a one and done. You can always approach him about the same subject multiple times and saying, "Okay, I'm struggling with executing this. I need your help." Or, "Honestly, God, I don't understand why you want me to do this. Can you talk to me about this?" And it's just this ongoing conversation. And sometimes he'll provide full insight and sometimes he won't. And I think, like, is my witness that it is always for our betterment. If he withholds an answer, it's not out of malignancy in any way, shape, or form. It's not to see us fail, because he gets no joy in watching us fail. It's to see us become better and to stand on our own 2 feet and give us the space that we need to make our own decisions. Bottom line, God delights in reasoning with us, no matter how long that conversation is. Here's an example from my life with God. So I think I was about 29 years old, and growing up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there's just this heavy emphasis on family. I think I've mentioned that before. And so when you're finally 18, you're in college, there's just kind of some societal pressure to find a spouse and get married pretty quickly and have kids. It's less so than it used to be even 10 years ago, but it still kind of exists. Like it's just kind of expected because everybody understands that the greatest source of happiness is from family anyway. And so why delay that? Well, I was 29 and I was single. And part of the reason I was struggling so much with being single is because I had too many experiences in my past where I didn't even know if I wanted to pursue marriage. It just seemed like it was too painful, that family was like a nice ideal for everybody else, but I don't know if I'd be able to execute it. There was a lot of shame for me associated with dating and romance in general because I thought I was too broken. It was a heavy topic for me. So it was a subject that I brought to God many, many times. And I think I even asked him the same question over and over again of like, why doesn't anyone want me? Knowing full well that was me just being in a victimhood mentality. I wasn't really ready to hear the answers. So for however many years this has been, I'm 29 years old, I think like at least 11 years, if not longer, since, people date when they're younger than 18, but at least 11 years of my life, I had come to God at least once a month with this same like heart-wrenching, what's so wrong with me? What's so broken with me? Why doesn't anybody want to date me? When is this going to get fixed? Is anybody going to love me? Is anyone going to love me? That whole spiral. And for 11 years, he didn't ever once like shut me down or say, be quiet, or stop complaining, or stop whining. No, not once. And it was one night when I was 29 that I was crying, and he just said, are you finished? And I was shocked because I'd received 99% of the time, I received tenderness, absolute tenderness from God when I communicate with him. But this was just a matter of fact, are you finished complaining about this? And I was like, well, I want to be, but I don't think that I am. And he replied, well, it's up to you. It's about you being happy. Do you want to be happy? And I was like, well, obviously, yes. Who's going to say no to that? And then I came back with another retort, but how can I possibly be happy when the future is so uncertain? I have no idea what's going to happen. And his reply was, what else in your life needs to be certain if I am certain? And y'all, that was powerful for me, obviously, since I still remember it these years later. It was one of those moments where he came and he reasoned with me in such a profound way that my heart changed. And I started to recognize that even if I had this wonderful man in my life, that wonderful man could not make me happy. Happiness had to be chosen, and my needs couldn't be met by that wonderful man, not all of them anyway. Instead, God meets needs that nobody else can. I needed to learn to trust in God's ability to make me happy, and God's plans, and God's grace, and God's love, and just drink deep from that to have my needs met in order to obtain happiness. And that's when it really began to sink in. I mean, you'd think all of these years of my life growing up in church and singing about, yes, Jesus loves me and God is real and all of that would have conveyed the point that I am loved. But, your girl still needed to figure it out. But from that conversation on, it finally stuck with me that I am facing a future that has Jesus in it. And so by definition, it's not going to be destitute. In fact, it won't be miserable, and it won't be barren of anything good. It will have everything good in it. And I knew that intellectually then. Living it out has been kind of tricky, but I love that no matter how many times I come to him and I say, look, I know you told me that everything's going to be okay, that you're going to walk with me, that you're going to face this future, but I still hurt. He's been there for me to hold my hand, to let me know that it's okay to be hurt in the meantime, that he's willing to wait by my side for the things that I want most. He comes and he reasons with me all the time. And I also love how in that verse specifically in Isaiah 1:18, the rest of it says, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. The times in my life where I've needed the most reasoning with has been him wrestling me to forgive me, that I won't accept forgiveness, and he has had to wrestle me into forgiving myself because he delights in me feeling forgiven and feeling free and feeling loved like I belong. He delights in helping me see the reality that I am important to him and that I will always have a relationship with him no matter what I do. So of course he is willing to wrestle. Of course he's willing to reason and come and reason with me. And it is no drudgery to him to have to do that over and over and over. He's not waiting until I am perfected to take joy in me. In fact, he loves this process and being a part of this process of helping me become such a healthy and whole individual and become the person that I ultimately am, but that I get stuck in my progress because of sin and because of poor choices and because of regret, and that I won't forgive myself. He's willing to see me through this whole process because he loves this whole process with me. It means he gets to be with me. So as paltry as the phrase is to convey how he feels, it's the best language I've got right now to say that God thinks you are absolutely worth the wait. Your perfection is worth his weight. Your wholeness, your healedness, and your delight is worth the wait to him. And he's content with not cutting corners. He's going to get this right. So thanks for coming back for another episode of Worth the Wait. I hope that you have a great rest of your week and that you can come to feel how much God delights in you exactly as you are in this moment, no matter how much of a mess you are, because you are His, and that's all He needs. He just needs you to be you. Have a great rest of your day and a wonderful week. God bless everyone.